everybody. Welcome to MBK Lounge. I'm so glad you guys decided to tune in again today. I said again. Yeah, I'm glad you decided to tune in again today. I think we have a great show, but it's a little bit different. And I know you might be wondering, Greg, you always say this is going to be different, or this is going to be, no. This is different because you guys know that MBK Lounge is a show that was created for men by men and really trying to help us see all of who we can be. But in order for us to get there, we sometimes have to change things up. So you'll find out who my guest is in a moment. But the other day I was talking with my wife and we were having a conversation and she said something along the lines of men being one-dimensional. And of course that went over well. So we talked a little bit more and a little bit more. And she talked about how men do what they do and want what they want, but the do doesn't match the want. And to be quite honest, fellas, I actually ended up saying, fellas, what are we doing? And when I said, fellas, what are we doing? I said, Greg, you're in the fellas, what are you doing? Because you're doing this and you want that, but the two don't always work. So today, I don't know if you're going to walk away with, oh, these are the 2 or 3 things that I'll do based on what we talk about. I think today is about we need to face what we do, and then we could talk about what we can do different. That's why today the show is called Fellas, What Are We Doing? And as usual, I can't have that conversation by myself. And the reason why the show is different is because I actually have my wife on the show with me today. Guys, let's welcome in my wife, Lisa Nicholson. Hey, baby.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good, I think. It's early.
Okay, all right.
So
I was surprised by the invite, but thank you.
Well, I mean, listen, in order for us to be all that we can be, we have to be open to hearing what the topic is about and who it may come from.
Okay.
So before Lisa came on the show, I said she's going to be representing women in some ways. I don't know if it's going to be all women.
Probably not.
But she's been a woman her whole life.
Yes.
So I think that gives her some level of credibility to talk for women. But let's jump into it. So the other day, you said to me that men are one-dimensional. Talk a little bit about that concept.
It's funny because when we were having that conversation, it really sparked just about relationships. Mm-hmm. So when I made this conversation, the statement, I was talking about relationships. Mm-hmm. And when I say that is because I've told you this in the past, we've had it in different scenarios that I think men work against their own best interests. And it's always interesting to me how I always say that if I ask a guy, and this is generality,
yeah, she's not talking about me.
It's a general thing. At
least not yet.
But I'm thinking if I ask a guy what will be the 3 most important things to them, I would think probably 2 of those things are going to be sex and money. I could be wrong, but I would think that they're probably up there. Sex and money. And money could be tied to power. It could be tied to influence. It could be tied to career, but it's going to be up there.
Right.
So now you play into a relationship and you go, okay, those are the 2 most important things to you, your top 3. But for some reason, especially when it comes to sex, you don't do anything to protect the one thing that you believe is the most important thing. So you're in this relationship, you have this woman and she's telling you all the things that she wants, all the things that she desires, all the things that she needs. And the things are simple. They're not, because here's the thing, women can be complicated because we're emotional. So your emotions, depending on who you're dealing with, the emotions can come from different scenarios. You and I are actually probably not very typical because I'm the person that's a little less sensitive. You're the more sensitive person in our relationship. So I can be the one that's a little more straightforward, but I get it. And because I think I come from that space of listening, I'm listening to you. But I think for men, you guys live in this space of, and it could just be how society nurtures men and how you grow up thinking, but you think you really don't have to do much in relationships to get much. So you know what I mean? And women are looking for somebody who's willing to do a little more, not just exist in the space of, I got a good job, I provide a home for you, you know, I show up every once in a while, I help out with the kids. But she's over there saying, but those things ain't gonna get you good sex. But you want good sex. Now she's gonna tell you how to get good sex, but you don't want to do that. And it could be the simplest thing. It could be her love languages, you know, take her to dinner. It could be that, you know, when she's tired, you recognize, hey, I got the kids tonight. And I'm talking about in the relationship space, because I think that most of us, men and women, want to be in relationships. But I question whether a lot of people are happy in them. There's a real big push for people, especially in the younger generation, not to be married. Why is that?
Right.
Why do we want to be in relationships, but we don't want to be in marital relationships? We don't want to be committed in that way. Why is that?
So, okay, so you said a couple of things. You said a whole lot about
I did,
us.
I'm sorry.
No, but that's why I asked, fellas, what are we doing? Because we know what we want. And if what we're doing isn't getting us what we want, why don't we change? And that's a question within itself. But I think the people aren't getting married because you mentioned commitment. And they also see marriages that aren't good examples, right? So they're like, why do I even need to get married? The ones that I've seen didn't go well, or I don't need to totally commit. I want to do what I want. I think that's unfortunate that kids or younger people may be seeing it that way.
But I also think that, and I told you this in the past too, when you're around guys, especially guys that aren't married, I think that married men who have good marriages don't do enough to promote good marriage. So there's no counterbalance to the person who grew up with no dad, or the person who grew up in a divorce situation, or their parents fought all the time. There's nothing to counterbalance that, because the guys who have good marriages, the guys just kind of sit there like this. You know, we was at the thing, and this guy, everybody, and I would always say to you, well, why didn't you speak up? You know, because women, we talk all day about what's good, what's bad, what's going right, what's not going right. And you guys never, if it's going right, you never counterbalance that argument unless you're talking about sports.
So
I mean, I know that sounds a little, but I always find that, you know, let you start talking about your sports team, you'll start telling all the goods and bads. But if you're talking about relationships, you don't have enough to counterbalance the narrative of these committed relationships suck.
So, okay, so that is a little bit outside of.
Sorry.
No. I mean, it's relevant because I think there are things that we need to do. We literally are talking people out of marriage, because if the guys are in the barbershop, or if the guys are somewhere, and you got the guys who are in marriages where they're not fulfilled, and they're talking the loudest, and the guys who are in a good relationship, and they're not saying anything. The guy who's single in the barbershop is going, why do I want to get married and take a chance of being trapped like the dude who's not fulfilled? But I think too, there's a concept that I recently heard about a radiant wife. And the gentleman said to me, and he's probably watching right now, hopefully, he said he wants to have a radiant wife. And what he wants is his wife, when she's in the beauty shop, the nail salon, wherever women congregate, that she is there talking about how good her husband is and how great marriage is. And what you're saying is that men owe it to other men or younger men who are still open to marriage to say good things about it. Because look, we've been married 29 years. Mm-hmm. And I will say, it's been great. Now, that's the overall rating. You know, but there's been some of these. It speaks
some alleys.
Yeah. So, but I wanted, though that was a little bit outside of it, I think, it's still an obligation. I think what you're saying that we as married men should have.
I do, but also the thing is that when I think of men and women in relationship, and even if you're not married, being a woman, as you mentioned, all my life, I think that one of the things that's really key is understanding that most women. I'm not saying all, there are plenty, and I think some of them that fall in that category, I don't want to be married, have been hurt or jaded so much by men. There's a whole movement now of women trying to go to women because they're so dissatisfied with men. The reality is that you guys have the ability to really have something beautiful in women if you paid attention. You have the ability to set this woman's life on fire if you just paid attention. And I always tell you, I do believe that men are innately selfish. I think that there's a selfishness that's built in that doesn't allow you, that you have to really peel back to say, I think that there is a space that you have to learn to listen, nurture, and move on that. Versus, here I am, see me roar kind of thing. We're not in competition with men. We want you to show up. And when I say one dimensional, I mean it in a space of seeing life in its totality, seeing that circle that says, if you do this, you get this. If you get that, you get this. If that happens, then you do this. As opposed to, if I just work hard enough, and, provide a good home, everything's going to be good. Or if I just do this versus really paying attention and listening. And I hope it's making
No, it does make sense. But here's what happens though, right? So you talked about how we're raised, right? And some of it is innate, the males and females, there are some things that about us that are innately there, right? And men are, we're talk about hunters and gatherers, right? So there is this fend for yourself. But what happens is, so we're raised a certain way. There are some things that are innate. But the reality is that when you're dating someone, sometimes women kind of encourage the selfishness that they get later. Well, why is that?
What do you mean?
So,
give me an example.
Well, you think early on, you think we're cute. You think we're fun. It's all giggle town, right? So early in marriage, just, people call it the honeymoon and all that honeymoon period. But the reality is that there are things that I do during that period where, everything is good, according to me, right? And then we see it as, you're changing because I'm basically who I've always been. And then now you're telling me that's not good enough. Like because before, as the provider, as the one keeping the lights on, and I'm not saying that women who, obviously women work and contribute and they could be the breadwinner, but there's something about who I am, and not necessarily what I do that still causes you to want to be with me, be around me. And we're talking intimately. And it's okay. You know what I mean? So sometimes you guys perpetuate this whole thing that you don't like.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, because I think that comes back to people understanding and having their own self-awareness about relationships and having a certain level of honesty. Meaning that I always said, even when I was dating you, I know if you, and I think that's the other part. That we as these gender roles, we don't understand the gender and what the expectation is and what people want. I personally believe, that men are creatures of habits. You know what I mean? Meaning that if you date somebody and you cook them dinner every day and you come in and you set it up, and guess what? He gonna want dinner every day.
That's right.
And guess what? Rightfully so. Because you told him that was part of the deal. That's why when I dated you, I didn't make you do it every day. I didn't make your plate because I knew I didn't want to set you up for something I wasn't going to do. When you met me, I worked out 6 days a week. I knew that what you were going to get, I wanted to be what I was already. I was already physically fit. So guess what? You were going to get somebody, and at 58 years old, you got somebody who's still physically fit. So I wasn't trying to put on this thing of doing something that I wasn't going to continue to do. So I do think that there's a lot of false narratives out there. I do think that there are people out there, men and women, who just trying to hook the line, who just trying to get, just trying to get the babe or get the guy. And they have no idea what this marriage thing really looks like, or what this really committed relationship looks like. So there is a lot of, you get in it and he was fine. It was fine when you were dating him, and now you're married to him and it's not good enough. I agree with that. But I also believe that regardless of what she's doing, there should be a standard to which you come into a relationship, believing that this is how you show up, believing this is the guy you should be, believing that this is how you support someone, regardless of what they're doing. Because we can all change for whatever reason. You could get sick. You could get, you married a girl because she gives you good sex. What happens if she gets sick? She can't give you sex anymore. What happens if the guy, ends up with ED? All these things can happen in relationships. So you got to go in with understanding who you want to portray yourself to be. And when you're not that person, to the person who you really want to be connected to, then I say to yourself, what are you doing? We had a conversation even last year where I just came to you and I said, I'm going to stop asking you to do what I want you to do. My expectation is we've been talking about the same thing over and over again. I'm going to tell you, and I just want you to do it. My expectation is you're just going to do it. And you're going to do it because you care that I want it done. I think that in relationships, that needs to be enough. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but when you're married for 29 years and you still saying ... why are we still doing that?
So then
why are we still having that dance?
So I found myself.
I can get a new dance. I don't need that dance.
Wait.
I didn't say a new partner. I just said a new dance.
Oh, okay.
I can get a new dance with you.
We say, hold up now. I know what you meant.
You know what I mean?
This is, you might think that this question is.
No, we might be going off topic.
No. This is, when I said that this show was called Fellas, What Are We Doing? All of this is a part of where you started, which was not the one-dimensional thing. Because the one-dimensional thing, as you explained, it takes us to selfish, and one-dimensional to selfish takes us to, I'm all about football, or I'm all about gardening.
That thing that you're into.
Right.
Because even you'll say, oh, I don't have the time for anything. I said, but I just watched you go out in the yard for 3 hours. But if I ask you something, well, I ain't got no time to do that. I'm like, no, you got time for what
figuratively speaking.
You got time for what you want to figure out. Because when I ask, it's like, I don't have time. And I'm like, but every time, somehow, you find the time for what you find.
Watching the Eagles.
That you want to do.
Going down to the yard. So let me ask you this
Running
question.
Marathons, whatever that is. You seem to find the time to do that.
And that takes us back to, fellas, what are we doing? Because we want what we want, but we're not. Why do you think, as the person who is married to a person who you have said clearly, you didn't say if you do this, you're going to get that, but clearly painted the path, painted the picture, told me what to do. Because the guys were, hey, fella, why do you think we just don't do it?
I don't know if you want me to answer that.
Okay, so you want to talk about me?
I
Can you keep it rated G?
Yes.
Okay.
I just think
or
that
PG is good enough. Wait a second. Are you going to put the whole?
No.
Okay.
I think what it is that I'll use you an example, and because that's the only way I can say it through our relationship is that I just don't think you believed it. I remember the first time I told you I thought you were selfish, you literally died. You were like, me? What? Selfish? You just had this whole thing. And I was like, yeah, you are. But because you see yourself a certain way, you see yourself as agreeable, you see yourself as easy to get along with, you see yourself as kind, you see yourself as generous, you see yourself as making time. You're all those things and selfish. But because you couldn't see that, the selfish part of it, I had to give you examples of the things that you would go, oh. But that took you a while. That took you a while to see that those things, that all these things that you would do for other people, for some reason you couldn't. I was left to say, oh, you could work that out because I got to go over here and do this. Or I'm a little too busy to do that, so I'm going to do this. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could carve out all this time, but and the thing was is that it wasn't ever about love. That was the thing. I think that for me, I knew I wasn't questioning your love, but I sometimes questioned your priorities. And I think when you have selfishness, that's how it comes out. It comes out in your priorities. It comes out in the things in your life that can wait for the other things that either are going to get you more money, more power, more recognition. But see, at home, it's home. You don't have to worry about the power. You don't have to worry about the exactly.
Taking things for granted.
So, but it comes in as being selfish. You know, that taking for granted is selfishness. You're not even thinking about the other person because, oh, this allows me, that person will do this. And so the selfishness comes in is when somebody says something to you about it. And you go, what, me? I'm doing, oh, I'm not, I would never do that. Or somehow I can't do this, but I'll see you maneuver and do something else.
It's funny because I remember it wasn't any one thing, but it was when I started to hear you.
Yes, when you started to hear me.
And it's funny because now that, I mean, I'm not perfect, and I'm still working on it. You didn't have to say that fast.
No, meaning that, but I'm not expecting perfection.
Right. So
that's never my.
But I remember some of the episodes where I could see that I obviously hurt you because it wasn't like the first time that I made something else seem like it was more important. Mm-hmm. But I remember how you looked when I made you feel less important, and whether I was just not near you, not with you, walking away. I mean, just those kinds of, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. That's just one episode.
Yes.
Or one example where what you needed from me was simple. And if I just would have made you the priority, then that other thing or those other people would have been a lot less. Like they can wait, not you.
And the thing is that,
and it wasn't easy to get there.
Well, the hard part was that I think that you didn't see your own ability to manage it all. You thought, and I think our situation is a little different from most because I was a stay-at-home mom for so long. Mm-hmm. So, being at home for 19 years with 3 kids, you had a built-in, she'll take care of that.
I did.
She'll take care of that.
I did.
She'll take care of that.
I did.
She'll take care of that. Whereas if I worked, it would have given you more the ability to see that you could have managed more.
Right.
You could have managed more. So when we started having the conversations of, well, I'm here, but your responsibility or your priority to do things in our home or with our family doesn't change because you've committed to this, and this. So I think that was harder for you because you always had a fallback. I was always the fallback. It was always going to get done. It was always, the kids were always going to be taken care of. They were always going to get where they needed to be. You always had a fallback so you could go do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But it never allowed you to see in totality, you know what? All those years, I never got you work so hard, let me take a day off and take care of this. Or and that's where the selfishness came in, that you could never see, there was no empathy in the situation. There was no empathy in the situation. And I think that when you operate in that space where you're not able to empathize with what your partner, whoever that is, your wife, your girlfriend, whatever, when you don't have empathy for that, and the only thing you can see is your situation, what you're doing, what you have to do. And that's what I would get from you. You never saw my situation. You only saw your situation. Well, this is what I have to do. This is how I have to do this. Here's the thing. I can work. So this whole thing, we would have this conversation. You're like, well, it's my job to do such and such. I can work. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I was never beholden to you in that way.
Right.
So,
it was a joint decision that we made for you not to work.
Right. But here's the joke. The joke is when men say, well, I'm working, I got to work to keep such and such going. You ain't working for me. And I would tell you that all the time. If I disappear tomorrow, you would work just as hard as you're working now. Having a family for most successful men or hardworking guys or men who really are career oriented, your family is just a byproduct of that. It is not why you're doing what you're doing. You happen to have maybe more of a reason to do it. But if your wife and kids just disappeared, poof, you just said, I don't want wife and kids no more, and they just went away, you get up every day to the same job, doing the same thing. You wouldn't all of a sudden go, I'm quitting my job and I'm just going, bike pedal around Europe.
That's deep.
You would get up every single day doing the exact same thing for the same people, making the same money. You would not give up your life for if your wife and kids weren't there. So this notion of I'm just doing it for them is a fact. I think it's a lie. But it's a lie you tell yourself, because if you tell yourself that lie, it precludes you from doing other things.
So I remember when you told me that.
You looked at me like I was crazy.
Well, it wasn't crazy. It was.
But you got it.
It was the truth.
It was the truth.
Because
you ain't working for me.
As much as we say, I do this to support my family and all that kind of stuff, and it's true.
It is true.
But when I think about the list of things that I gathered that get in the way of me getting one of the things that I say is important, one of them is allowing work or hobbies to take over. And the reality is that I like to say, well, I'm working long and I'm working really hard. Hobby might be a little more, I work all week and then I go, bowling with my friends all weekend. You're like, yeah, maybe I should cut back on that. But work, that's hard for guys because we're doing that really as much for ourselves as we are for those who we say we're doing it for. Because if everybody left, I still want to be the best at X. I still want to be promoted. I still want to be recognized, which are all things that are important to men. When you say what are the 2 or 3, one of them also is recognition, which is tied to power, position. Look at what accomplishment is on that list. So we do that anyway. Right.
And that's why men sometimes have a hard time in dating women who want more, because their thing is, I want to see you more. I want to go out more. I want to do well. That is, we could do that. But at the end of the day, it's tied into what he really, really wants to do. And it has really nothing to do with this relationship. Ultimately, it really doesn't. I meant to say, I know why I said that. And I think that then when the woman asks for more, you become a nag. You want him to do something, you're nagging him. But all she's really saying is she's trying to find a place. She's trying to find a place. Where do I fit in this? Where do I fit in to the life that you're going to have, whether I'm there or not? Your life was going to be what it was, what it is now, whether I'm here or not. So I've got to find that space that says, you've got to fit me in somewhere. You got to make this make sense.
So it's funny. So I have a list of things that I said, what I used your term, you make us one dimensional, but get in the way. We talked about taking love for granted, right? We talked about allowing work, and or hobbies to get in the way. You touched on it, not actively listening, right? Because no snickering, because when you told me things, I didn't hear it, but actively listening can be even more than, I'm not just telling you this so that you can get what you want. It could just be, I'm just talking to you about things and I'm just not actively listening. Right. So I don't know if you can jump in to share anything, on that, but another one that you haven't talked about yet, and maybe in some ways you did, but neglecting emotional connection. Right. So earlier you talked about how I'm a little more the emotional person in this. Right. But I will admit that there were times when, because I'm a little more emotional, it doesn't mean that you're not emotional at all. So I would make decisions as if you were not emotional at all. And I probably should not have. But again, it goes back to, fellas, what are you doing? Because it made me do some things that I shouldn't have done. Right. So, and you did talk about lack of empathy in stressful times. So it's funny how we're picking off some of the things that we don't do, that if we did it, it might help us get it. Right.
And the funny thing about it, I think that I always say men are very simple, and you guys are. I think that we are. I think that how you look at the world and maneuver in the world is a very simple place. And I think that women are a little more complicated, again, because of the emotional piece. And y'all, because of your simplicity, you can't always figure out what that emotion means. And I get it. And I think that sometimes we have to figure out as women how to learn to better communicate what that emotion is. And so that simplicity, because sometimes I'll be talking to you and it's like, whoosh, like deer in headlights. I'm like, what part of this aren't you understanding? Because you just don't get it.
This show isn't supposed to be about me.
You just don't get it. And I was like, okay, all right. But I just think that in its simplicity, you have to take those simple moments and digest them. So if you hear someone say, hey, I just need this, and it's a simple thing to do. If you know your person's love language is acts of service, figure out that one simple thing that's not going to drive you crazy, but that you could figure out. I mean, you don't have to go out and buy roses every week, or you don't have to, but it could be something as simple as, you like to wash cars, wash her car. You like to do that thing that you're going to do anyway. Do it for her. You want to. So it's one of those things that I feel like, again, y'all sometimes work against your best interests, and especially when it comes to sex. You'll hear so many men complain about sex. And I'm like, guess what? If the woman's saying she's too tired, help us out. Figure it out. If you keep doing that, helping her out, and then you find that you're still not getting the sex, you probably have a bigger problem than the sex. That's what people don't really want to look at. You might have a bigger problem than the sex. Maybe she's just not attracted to you anymore. I mean, it's hard, but maybe that's the problem. Maybe you need to do a little more to get her more attracted to you.
Right, that could be a symptom of the stuff you're not doing.
Yeah, because the reality is, Greg, I chose you. I chose you the way you looked. I chose you what you were doing. I chose you, based on your whatever activity, whatever you were doing, I chose you. I could have said no. So that means at some point I loved you enough to say yes. So I'm pro-marriage. I will say that. So I loved you enough to say yes. So that means I can love you enough to say yes again. So you just have to figure out where do we, if you care enough, and this is not just men, it's women too. If you care enough, you have to figure out how do we get back on the road to yes? Because we both said yes. Now, if you said yes and now you have buyer's remorse, I would hope your buyer's remorse came earlier than, it's always interesting to me, people get married 30 years and then they get divorced. You ain't know, you had buyer's remorse for 30 years?
Yeah.
That's like crazy.
Yeah.
So I just say to myself, there's a road to get back to yes. So if she's not giving it to you, figure out what is it she really, really wants. Because guess what? If you were having sex before you got married, she was freely giving it to you then. So what were you doing?
Yeah.
What has changed? What made her say, nah?
Yeah. Yeah. It goes back to, fellas, what are you
doing? I mean, because that is what's important to you.
Right.
If sex is your number 10, then I get it.
Right.
But if sex is your number 1 and you ain't getting it, I'm looking at you like, dude, what you doing?
Right. Right.
That's like saying, hey, I want a new job, but y'all want to make more money, but you ain't looking for a job. It's just like somebody will look at you and go, what are you doing?
So you just talked about another area, ignoring small acts of kindness. That's another one on the list of things that we don't do, right?
That was a big deal for me with us. You know what I mean? That was one of the things that we had issues with, just small little things that was just neglected. And it was just kind of like, well, taken for granted, neglect, whatever you want to say. Right. But those things would have gone a long way. Yeah. And they were simple things. It wasn't like I was saying, hey, you got to wine and dine me, or I don't care about that kind of stuff. Right. That's not who I am. I don't really care about my acts of, my love language isn't gifts. Right. You know what I mean? It's not. So
there's one more piece that I want to talk about before we close out.
Okay.
Because a lot of this, when it comes to, hey fellas, what are we doing? And you talked about area that I know about. We talk about love language. We talk about apology language, right? Is that what they call it? Apology languages. Failing to resolve conflict properly. How important is that to you, to women? I mean, I know to you, but to women. Remember, you're the representative today.
It's really important to me. I think that men and women, we have an overall, I think, problem with resolving conflict, because I think that conflict doesn't feel good and hard conversations don't feel good, and people want to feel good. We always want to feel good. We always want to believe that we're in a good space. So conflict doesn't feel right unless you're fighting. That's why people, I would always say to somebody, hey, you got a problem. Go talk to somebody when you're not fighting. Because then it's just a conversation. Because when you bring it up and you're fighting, nobody's listening. So you fight about it again, and you fight about it again, and you fight about it again. So a lot of times I even do it with you. I'll just come out of the blue. Hey, I had an issue with what you said, or 2 days ago, because now I'm in a place where you're not threatened by what I'm saying, and I'm not taken aback. But I think conflict is hard because people don't want to feel bad. They don't want to feel attacked. So you instantly get defensive. If you take conflict from a standpoint of, I'm saying this for us to be better, not to make you feel bad. We always come from this place where we don't want to take our own stuff. Sometimes you got to own your own stuff. Sometimes it is your fault. That people don't want to hear, it's your fault. Sometimes it is your fault. I was just talking to Dwight earlier. He said something. He said, right. I don't have anything else.
Because I think your apology language is one of accountability.
Yes, I'm a very big accountability person. So I was right. Yes, you were right. And I
just learned about it.
I don't like all the excuses. I'm like, you know what? You screwed up. I can take screw ups. I can take the conversation about, hey, I messed up, won't happen again. Cool. I don't need no song and dance. I don't need any. So I think when people come from a space of being really honest about conflict, you can solve a lot of it. because a lot of times it is just misunderstandings. It is just a miscue. I thought you were doing this and you thought you were doing that. And you're just, or guess what? We just have a different perspective about it.
Right.
And if we talk about our perspective, I always tell people, I don't like conflict. I just don't run from it. Because I don't think conflict is
I know.
You know, right. I know, you know, but I don't think conflict is good for anybody. I don't think anybody is comfortable in it.
Right.
I just don't run from it because I want my problem solved.
Right. And
That's my problem. I want the resolution. I want the problem
It's potentially
solved.
the pathway to better.
Yes. Yes.
So listen, this show was called Fellas, What Are We Doing? And I feel like we've reached a spot where the guys have heard enough about things we need to think about. And I appreciate your willingness to come on and talk about it. I appreciate that you didn't throw me under the bus and back up and then go back over me again. I know that wasn't easy a few times, but I appreciate it. This was good. And so, I mean, I normally shake people's hands and all that, but I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're good too.
Yeah.
I'll keep you around for 30 more.
There you go. So fellas, the question was, what are we doing? Hopefully this conversation has helped you self-reflect. That's really what today was about. Is to get you to self-reflect, because I think at the end of the day, we talk about what we do to get it. And I don't know if that's necessarily the right word, to get it, because even that sounds selfish. I think really the way I want you to walk away is do things so that they want to do it. It's not about, I want to get it, because then it's more about you. You want them to want. And I think if you think about that, hopefully that will help you take some of the things that Lisa spoke about today. So, hey, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this was very beneficial to you, and look forward to seeing you next time. Be blessed.